My dad said, "You'll never make it without my money," until I bought the house next to his for cash. He'd said it my entire life, when I wanted to go to state college instead of his alma mater, when I chose marketing over law, when I started my own business at 23 instead of joining his firm. Every time I made a decision he didn't approve of, he'd lean back in his leather chair and deliver the same line. "You'll regret this. You need me." My mom would sit there silently, picking at her salad, pretending she didn't hear. My older brother would smirk. He'd taken the safe route, working under Dad, living in the house Dad bought him. "Just take the money," he'd tell me. Pride doesn't pay bills, but I didn't want his money. I wanted to prove I didn't need it. For 5 years, I lived in a studio apartment with 3 roommates. I ate ramen and worked 80-hour weeks building my marketing agency from nothing. While my brother posted vacation photos from Dad's timeshare in Cabo, I was sleeping in my office. When my first big contract fell through, Dad called, "Come work for me. This independence fantasy is over." I hung up and landed 2 bigger clients that month. By year 7, my agency had 15 employees. Year 9, we hit our first million in revenue. Dad never congratulated me. He'd just say things like, "Let me know when you need a bailout." At family dinners, he'd ask pointed questions designed to expose my failures. "How's that little business? Still breaking even?" Last month, I closed a deal worth $2.3 million. The house next to my parents went up for sale. It was bigger than theirs, better maintained, with a view of the lake they'd always envied. Asking price was $890,000. I called my realtor and made an all-cash offer for $920,000. No inspection, no contingencies. The sellers accepted within an hour. I didn't tell anyone. Moving day, I watched from my new kitchen window as my dad came outside to see what the commotion was, his face when he saw me directing movers. My mom actually dropped her coffee mug. My brother pulled up 20 minutes later. He stood in Dad's driveway just staring. Dad marched over that afternoon. "Where did you get this kind of money?" he demanded. I handed him my company's quarterly report. He scanned it, his face turning red. "This doesn't mean anything. Markets change. You'll lose it all." "Maybe," I said, "but I won't lose it to you." That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, things have gotten weird. My mom started texting me separately, asking to meet for coffee. My brother stopped by twice, both times when Dad wasn't home. The first time, he asked about job openings at my company. "Dad's cutting my salary," he said quietly. "Says I need to prove myself now." Then yesterday morning, I found an envelope on my doorstep. Inside was a legal document, a copy of Dad's will from 2019. Someone had highlighted a section. It stated that my brother would inherit 70% of everything, with the remaining 30% split between me and Mom, but only if we remained in good standing with the family. Below that, a sticky note in Mom's handwriting read, "There's a new version. You need to see it." I was still holding the envelope when my phone rang. It was Dad's attorney. "Your father's had a stroke. He's at Memorial Hospital. You should come." I drove there, my mind racing. My brother's car was already in the lot. When I walked into the ICU waiting room, he looked up with hollow eyes. "They don't think he's going to make it," he whispered. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Dad changed the will last week. Everything goes to someone else entirely. Mom's been disinherited. We both have been." That's when Mom appeared from the hallway, her face pale. "I need to talk to you both," she said, "about why your father really didn't want you to succeed." She glanced nervously at the ICU doors. "He's been hiding something for 30 years, something that explains everything, and now the person he left everything to is standing in that room with him right now." I looked through the small window in the ICU door. A woman stood beside Dad's bed. She was maybe 28, with dark hair pulled into a neat bun. She held Dad's hand and was crying softly. I'd never seen her before in my life. "Who is that?" I asked. Mom's voice cracked. "Her name is Violet. She's your father's daughter." The words didn't register at first. My brother made a choking sound. I just stared at Mom, waiting for her to explain how that was possible. "Your father had an affair 29 years ago," Mom said. Her hands were shaking. "With his secretary at the firm. When she got pregnant, he paid her to leave the state and keep quiet. He's been supporting them ever since. Violet grew up in Oregon with her mother. Your father visited them twice a year. He paid for everything. Her school, her college, her apartment. While he was cutting your allowance," she looked at my brother, "and refusing to help you," she looked at me, "he was sending Violet $5,000 a month." I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. "You knew about this?" "Not until 3 months ago." Mom sat down heavily in one of the plastic chairs. "I found bank statements he'd hidden. Transfers going back decades. When I confronted him, he said it was too late to fix anything. That Violet deserved his money more than any of us because she was the only one who never disappointed him." My brother's face had gone white. "So all those years he said I wasn't working hard enough, wasn't worthy of his respect. It was because he was comparing you to her," Mom finished. "She became a doctor, pediatric oncology. She volunteers at free clinics. She's everything he wanted you both to be, and he got to take credit for none of it while blaming you for everything." I walked to the window again. Violet was still holding Dad's hand. She looked genuinely devastated. A nurse entered and said something to her. She nodded, wiped her eyes, then leaned down and kissed Dad's forehead. "She doesn't know about us, does she?" I said. "She knows he has a family," Mom said, "but I don't think she knows the details. Her mother died 2 years ago. Cancer. Your father paid for all the treatments. He was there when she passed. He told me he was at a conference in Seattle. The door to the ICU opened. Violet walked out, her eyes red. She saw the 3 of us and froze. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Finally, she said, "You must be his family, and you must be the reason my father spent 30 years making us feel worthless," my brother said coldly. Violet's face crumpled. "I don't understand. He told me he was going to finally tell you about me, that he wanted us all to meet. That's why I came when the hospital called." "Did he also tell you he left you everything?" my brother demanded. "That he cut his wife and both his sons out of his will to give it all to you?" "What? No." Violet looked genuinely shocked. "That's not, he wouldn't do that." "Apparently he did," I said. My voice sounded strange, detached. Last week, his attorney just called my mom before you showed up. Violet shook her head. There has to be a mistake. He said he was fixing things, making things right. I thought that meant bringing the family together, not... She pulled her phone from her pocket. Let me call his lawyer. This can't be right. She walked away, phone pressed to her ear. I watched her through the hospital windows, pacing back and forth in the parking lot. Mom put her hand on my arm. I'm so sorry. I should have told you both as soon as I found out. I just kept hoping it would all turn out to be some kind of misunderstanding. How much are we talking about? My brother asked quietly. How much is he worth? The business is valued at $8.7 million, Mom said. The house and properties, another $3 million. Investment accounts, retirement funds, life insurance, all together somewhere around $15 million. I did the math in my head. $15 million. Going to a woman we'd never met. While Dad had spent our entire lives withholding everything from us, using money as a weapon to control us, to make us feel small. And now I understood why. It was never about us not being good enough. It was about him feeling guilty. Every time he looked at us, he saw his betrayal of Mom, his secret family, his lie that he'd been living for 3 decades. So he punished us for existing, for being evidence of the life he'd built on deception. Violet came back inside. Her face was ashen. I just spoke with Howard. That's his attorney. He said the will is valid. It was changed 8 days ago. Everything goes to me with one exception. There's a letter he left for each of you. Howard is supposed to read them after... She couldn't finish the sentence. After he dies, my brother said flatly. I don't want this, Violet said, her voice rising. I don't want any of it. This isn't right. You're his sons. You grew up with him. You deserve... We deserve nothing, I interrupted. According to him, that's what he spent our whole lives telling us. A doctor emerged from the ICU. Family of Richard Thornton? We all turned. The doctor's expression told me everything before he spoke. I'm sorry. We did everything we could. He's gone. Mom made it sound like she'd been struck. My brother just stood there, staring at nothing. I felt empty, completely hollow. I should have been sad. I should have felt something. But all I could think was that my father had died without ever once telling me he was proud of me. And now I knew why. He'd been saving all his pride for someone else. The next 3 days were a blur. Funeral arrangements, phone calls with the attorney, estate paperwork. Violet tried to talk to us several times, but my brother refused to be in the same room with her. Mom was too broken to do anything but sit in her bedroom, staring at old photos. I was the one who had to handle everything, just like always. The funeral was on a Thursday. Small. Dad hadn't had many friends. Most of the people there were business associates who'd come out of obligation. Violet sat in the back, trying to be invisible. Mom sat in the front, her face like stone. My brother didn't come at all. He'd texted me that morning. Can't do it. Can't sit there and pretend to mourn him. I didn't blame him. After the service, Howard pulled me aside. The reading of the will is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. at my office. I know this is difficult timing, but your father was very specific about the timeline. Will there be surprises beyond the ones we already know about? I asked. Howard adjusted his glasses. Your father's final instructions are complicated. I think it's best if everyone is present to hear them together. That night, I sat in my new house next door to the empty house my parents had lived in for 35 years. I could see into the dark windows. Could imagine Dad sitting in his study, plotting how to hurt us one more time, even after death. My phone buzzed. A text from Violet. Please come tomorrow. I need you to understand I didn't ask for any of this. I didn't respond. The next day, Howard's office was on the 12th floor of a building downtown. When I arrived, Mom was already there, wearing all black. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 4 days. Violet sat across from her, keeping her distance. My brother showed up 10 minutes late, his jaw clenched. Howard cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. I know this is painful. Richard was my client for 22 years, and I can honestly say this is one of the most unusual wills I've ever handled. He opened a folder. Before we get to the distribution of assets, Richard left individual letters for each of you. He insisted these be read aloud in order. First, to his wife Claire. He handed Mom an envelope. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single page. She read it silently first, her face going through a series of expressions: shock, anger, disgust. Then she read it aloud. Claire, by the time you hear this, you'll have discovered the truth about Violet. I know you've spent the last 3 months hating me for it. You should. I was a coward and a liar, but you need to understand something. I never loved you. Not really. I married you because my father told me to. Because your family had money and connections. Because it was good for business. The only time I ever felt truly alive was when I was with Violet's mother. She loved me without condition, without expectation. When she died, part of me died with her. I stayed with you out of obligation. Nothing more. You wasted your life on a man who never deserved you. I'm sorry for that, but I'm not sorry for finding real love, even if it was stolen moments. Take your 30% from the 2019 will if you can prove this new will is invalid. I suspect you'll try. Good luck with that. The silence that followed was crushing. Mom's hands trembled so badly she dropped the paper. I picked it up and saw Dad's signature at the bottom, dated 2 weeks ago. That son of a bitch, my brother whispered. Howard looked uncomfortable. I advised Richard against this approach for what it's worth. Now to his eldest son, Thomas. My brother flinched at hearing his name. Howard handed him an envelope. Thomas opened it roughly, nearly tearing the paper. He scanned it, his face turning red, then crumpled it without reading it aloud. Read it, Mom said. Her voice was hard. We're all suffering. Share it. Thomas smoothed out the paper, his hands balled into fists. Thomas, you were my biggest disappointment. I gave you every advantage. Put you through the best schools, hired you at my company with a salary you didn't earn, and you've done nothing but coast on my name your entire life. You're 37 years old, and you've never had an original thought. Never closed a deal without me doing the heavy lifting. Never shown an ounce of the drive or ambition that built what you've been feeding off of like a parasite. When I told people about my children, I never mentioned you. I'd just talk about your brother's agency and then change the subject. You are the living embodiment of wasted potential. I'm leaving you nothing because you just waste it like you've wasted everything else I ever gave you. Maybe now you'll finally learn what it means to work for something. Thomas threw the letter across the room. Fuck him. Fuck all of this. He stormed out. The door slammed behind him. I didn't try to stop him. Howard looked at me. And for his youngest son, Raymond. My heart was pounding as he handed me the envelope. I thought I'd been ready for whatever Dad had to say. I wasn't. Raymond, you're reading this and probably thinking you've won. You bought the house next to ours. You built a successful business. You proved you didn't need me. Congratulations. You want to know the truth? The only reason I pushed you so hard was because I saw real potential in you. Not like your brother. You had fire, drive, intelligence, but you also had pride, arrogance. You thought you were better than me, better than the family. So I gave you exactly what you wanted. Nothing. And you thrived on that nothing. Turned it into something real. I'm actually proud of you for that, though I'll never say it to your face. But here's what you don't understand. Every major contract you've closed in the last 3 years, I made a phone call first. Every client who took a chance on your unproven agency, they owed me favors. You think you built your success on your own? You built it on my foundation, my reputation, my connections. Without me, you're nothing. You just don't know it yet. And now you'll never be sure which parts of your success were really yours. That uncertainty will eat at you for the rest of your life. You're welcome for that. I stared at the words until they blurred. My hands weren't shaking. I felt very calm, very still. Is that true? I asked Howard. Did he make calls? I honestly don't know, Howard said quietly. Richard made many calls over the years. Whether any of them were related to your business, I couldn't say. He never mentioned it to me. I set the letter down carefully. Precisely. Everything in me wanted to scream, to throw things, to burn Dad's letter the way Thomas had wanted to. But I didn't. I just sat there, my mind replaying every client meeting, every deal, every success I'd thought was mine. Had any of it been real? There's one more letter, Howard said. To Violet. He handed it to her. She'd been silent through all of this, tears streaming down her face. She opened the envelope slowly. Read it aloud, I said. My voice was cold. Seems like we're all sharing today. Violet looked at me, then at Howard, then back at the letter. She cleared her throat. Violet, my dear girl. You are the one pure thing in my complicated life. From the moment you were born, you were perfect. Your mother was an incredible woman, and she raised you to be even better. I'm sorry I couldn't be there more. Sorry I couldn't claim you publicly. But I watched you from a distance with more pride than you'll ever know. You became a doctor. You helped children who are suffering. You volunteer your time. You never asked me for anything beyond what I freely gave. My legitimate sons turned into men I barely recognize. One a leech, one too proud to accept help. My wife stayed for money and status, not love. But you stayed because you loved me. Because you wanted nothing from me except the occasional phone call, the rare weekend visit. That's worth more than anything money can buy. I'm leaving you everything because you deserve it. Use it to save more children, to make the world better. Don't let the others manipulate you into giving them anything. They'll try. They'll say I was wrong, that they deserve something. They don't. They had everything and squandered it. You had nothing and became everything. With all my love, Dad. The room fell silent. Violet was sobbing openly now. I'm so sorry. I didn't know he felt this way about you. About any of you. He never said these things. He saved them for after death, I said, because he was a coward. Raymond, Mom said sharply, but she didn't argue. Howard pulled out more paperwork. The estate is valued at $14.8 million after final accounting. Per Richard's wishes, it all transfers to Violet Chen, with the exception of the Lakeview house. That was left to Claire with the stipulation that she has 60 days to buy out Richard's 50% share at market value, or the house will be sold and the proceeds added to Violet's inheritance. I don't have that kind of money, Mom said. The house is worth $2.4 million. I'd need $1.2 million in cash. I know, Howard said gently. Richard knew that too, so Dad had taken everything. The business he'd built, the investments, the life insurance, and he'd made sure Mom would lose the house too. Either she'd have to drain whatever savings she had, or she'd be forced out. There is one final item, Howard continued. Richard left instructions for a challenge. A challenge? I repeated. Yes, he called it the succession game. Howard pulled out another document. Richard was aware that this would be contested. He actually expected it. So he created an alternative, a way for his legitimate heirs to earn back some of what was taken from them. Violet leaned forward. What kind of game? A business competition, Howard explained. Richard's company, Thornton Enterprises, is currently valued at $8.7 million. Richard has stipulated that if Raymond and Thomas can increase the company's value to $12 million within 1 year, the company will be split 3 ways, 1/3 to each son, 1/3 to Violet. If they fail, Violet keeps the entire company as planned. That's insane, I said. We don't even work there. Thomas doesn't have the first clue how to run a company, and I have my own business. Which is why Richard thought it was a perfect test, Howard said. He's giving you access to the company for 1 year, full control. You'll work together or compete, that's up to you. But if you can prove you're capable of growing his legacy, you'll earn it. If you can't, Violet gets everything as the will states. What if we just refuse? I asked. Then the will stands as written. Violet gets everything. The clock starts today, whether you participate or not. I looked at my brother's empty chair, then at Mom, who was staring at nothing, then at Violet, who looked like she wanted to disappear. I need time to think, I said. You have 24 hours to decide, Howard replied. After that, if you decline, Violet takes possession of all assets immediately. I drove home in a daze. My phone rang 6 times. Thomas. I didn't answer. I couldn't talk to him yet. Couldn't process what Dad had done. Every major contract you've closed in the last 3 years, I made a phone call first. Had he really? Or was that just one final knife in my back? A last attempt to make me doubt myself. I pulled into my driveway and sat there, staring at my parents' house next door. All the lights were off. Tomorrow, Mom would have to start figuring out how to buy out a house she'd lived in for 35 years, or lose it entirely. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Violet. I know you probably hate me. I understand. But I need you to know I'm going to refuse the inheritance. I don't want it. None of this is right." I stared at the message. Then I typed back, "Don't." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "What do you mean?" "I mean, don't refuse it, not yet. Meet me tomorrow, noon. The address of Thornton Enterprises. Come alone." "Okay." I got out of my car and walked to my front door. As I unlocked it, I looked back at Dad's house one more time. A light turned on in the master bedroom. Mom was home, probably packing, probably trying to figure out where she'd go. Inside, I poured myself a drink and sat in my living room, the room Dad had seen through the windows, the success he'd claimed to have engineered. I pulled up my phone and started scrolling through my client list. 3 years of contracts. I found the dates, found the correspondence, found the proposals. Then I started making calls to current clients, to former clients, to competitors who'd lost bids to me. "Hey, it's Raymond Thornton. Quick question. Did my father ever contact you before we started working together?" I made 23 calls that night, got through to 16 people. Every single one said the same thing. "No, we'd heard of your agency through industry reputation. Your proposal was just better." But 7 didn't answer. 7 maybes. 7 possibilities that Dad had been telling the truth. At 2 a.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Thomas stood there looking worse than I'd ever seen him. I opened the door. "He's right," Thomas said without preamble. "Everything he said about me. I'm 37 years old and I've got nothing. No skills, no prospects. Dad's been paying me $180,000 a year to do bullshit busy work, and everyone at the company knows it." He laughed bitterly. "You know what the VP of operations said to me at the Christmas party last year? He said, 'Must be nice being born lucky.' I thought he was talking about being born rich. Now I realize he meant lucky that Dad didn't expect anything from me, that I could coast forever without consequences." "Come inside," I said. He followed me to the living room. I poured him a drink. We sat in silence for a minute. "Are you going to do it?" he asked. "The challenge? I don't know. Are you? I don't even know what I'd do. I don't know how to run a company. I've never closed a real deal. Never built anything. I'm 37 and I have the resume of a 22-year-old. Dad did that to you," I said. "No." Thomas shook his head. "I did that to myself. Dad gave me an easy path and I took it. Every time. I knew I was being lazy, knew I wasn't learning anything real, but it was comfortable. And I told myself it was smart. Why work hard when you don't have to? Now I see what it cost me." He drained his glass. "I'm going to do the challenge. I don't care if I fail. I don't care if Violet ends up with everything anyway. I just need to prove to myself that I can build something, earn something. Will you help me?" I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He'd spent 37 years being the good son, the obedient one, the one who did exactly what Dad wanted, and Dad had hated him for it. "Yeah," I said, "I'll help you. Even though you don't need to, you've already got your own company, your own success. Maybe, or maybe Dad was right and everything I built was because of him. Either way, I need to know." Thomas nodded slowly. "So we grow his company to $12 million, take our third each, and prove we're not the disappointments he said we are. Something like that? What about Violet? What about her? She seems decent. None of this is her fault. I know. That's the worst part." Thomas stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. "Thanks for not giving up on me. Everyone else did a long time ago." "You're my brother," I said. "That has to mean something." After he left, I sat alone until sunrise, thinking about the challenge, about what it would take to grow a company by $3.3 million in 1 year, about whether I even wanted to. But I knew I didn't really have a choice. Not because I needed the money. I didn't. My agency was doing fine. But because if I walked away, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering if Dad had been right, if I'd really built my success alone, or if I'd been standing on a foundation I didn't know existed. At noon, the next day, I pulled up to Thornton Enterprises. It was a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. Dad had moved the office here 5 years ago. I'd never been inside. Violet was waiting in the lobby. She dressed professionally, slacks and a blazer, trying to look like she belonged here. I could see traces of Dad in her features, the same sharp jawline, same dark eyes. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. "Let's walk." We left the building and headed toward the Riverwalk. It was a cold November day, the kind where your breath fogs and you can't feel your fingers. "I meant what I said," Violet started. "I'm going to refuse the inheritance. I've already talked to Howard about the process." "Don't. Raymond, I can't take $15 million from people I just met, people whose father I apparently destroyed. You didn't destroy anything. He did that himself. Still, it's not right." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to accept the inheritance, all of it. Then my brother and I are going to do this challenge. We're going to grow that company. And when we succeed, if we succeed, you're going to get your third. Same as us." "Why would you do that?" "Because my father spent his life using money to punish people, to control them, to measure their worth. I'm not doing that. If you refuse the inheritance out of guilt, you're just letting him win one more time. Take the money. Use it for your clinic. Save kids. Be exactly what he said you were. The one good thing that came out of his miserable life." Violet's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to accept this." "You don't have to know. You just have to say yes." She wiped her eyes. "What if you and Thomas fail? What if the company doesn't grow? Then you still keep everything. And honestly, that wouldn't be the worst outcome. At least the money would go somewhere good." "Tell me about your business," Violet said suddenly. "Your agency." I did. I told her about the studio apartment with 3 roommates, about the 80-hour weeks, about every contract I'd fought for and won, about buying the house next to my parents just to prove I could. "Your father called me 3 weeks ago," Violet said when I finished. "He was furious. Said you'd humiliated him in front of the neighbors, that you'd thrown your success in his face. That was the plan. He also said he'd never been more proud of anything in his life. I stopped walking. He said that? Yes. He said you'd become exactly what he'd hoped for. Self-made, driven, successful without his help. He said it proved he was right to be hard on you. That's sick. I know, but I think in his twisted way, he believed he was helping you, pushing you to be better by withholding everything. That's not how parenting works. No, Violet agreed. It's not. My mom was the opposite. She gave me everything. Support, encouragement, love, and I still became a doctor. Maybe even more so because I had someone who believed in me. She looked out at the river. I think your father was broken in ways he never admitted. My mom used to say he was trying to heal something in himself by being different with me than he was with his legitimate family. Like he thought he could erase his mistakes by getting it right the second time. Did he? Get it right with you? Some parts. He was kind to me, supportive, but he was also living a double life, which meant I only got fragments of him. Birthday phone calls, weekend visits every 6 months. He missed my high school graduation because it conflicted with your brother's. He missed my white coat ceremony because he was at your mother's charity gala. I got the better version of him, but I never got all of him. We walked in silence for a while. I need to ask you something, I said. That letter he wrote you, the one about your mother being the love of his life, did you know he felt that way? Yes, he told me that once, when I was 16. He was drunk. He said my mom was the only woman who ever made him feel like he was enough, that his marriage was a business arrangement that had gone on too long. I felt so guilty after that, like I was part of some terrible sin. You were a kid. None of it was your fault. Maybe, but I benefited from it. From his guilt money. From being the secret daughter he could pretend was perfect because I only existed in stolen moments. Are you perfect? Violet laughed. No, I have $170,000 in student loans. My apartment is a shoebox. I work 60-hour weeks and barely have time to date. Last month I made a diagnosis error that almost killed a patient. I fixed it in time, but it scared the hell out of me. See? Human. Unfortunately, we turned back toward the building. So we're doing this? I asked. All three of us? I guess we are. Violet paused. Can I ask you something? Why did you really buy that house? Was it just to prove something to your father? I thought about it. Honestly, I don't even know anymore. When I signed the contract, I felt like I was winning, like I'd finally beaten him at his own game, but now I just feel empty, like I won a game that didn't matter. Maybe that's the point, Violet said. Maybe he was never playing the same game as you. You were trying to prove your worth. He was trying to justify his guilt. We reached the entrance to Thornton Enterprises. Through the glass, I could see employees moving through the lobby, people who'd worked for my father, who'd know Thomas and me as the boss's sons, who probably had opinions about both of us. Let's go see what we're working with, I said. Inside, we met with the CFO, a woman named Patricia who'd been with the company for 15 years. She laid out the financials in a conference room that smelled like coffee and copy paper. Current valuation is $8.7 million, Patricia explained, pulling up a presentation on the screen. Revenue last year was $12, $4 million with a net profit of $2.1 million. Your father ran a lean operation. Good margins, solid client base, minimal debt. What's the growth trajectory been? I asked. Flat for the last 3 years, Patricia admitted. Your father was approaching retirement. He stopped pursuing new business aggressively. We've retained existing clients well, but haven't expanded. So we need to add about $3.3 million in value in 1 year, I said. What's the fastest path to that? Depends on the approach. We could pursue rapid client acquisition, which would increase revenue and potentially boost valuation. We could streamline operations to improve profit margins, which makes the company more attractive. Or we could pursue a strategic acquisition, buy a smaller competitor and fold them in, instantly increasing our market share. Thomas had joined us halfway through the presentation. He'd been quiet, taking notes. Now he spoke up. What would Dad have done? Patricia looked uncomfortable. Richard would have said none of the above. He'd have said the company is worth what it's worth, and trying to artificially inflate that for a deadline is bad business. Good thing he's not here then, Thomas said. Over the next week, the three of us, me, Thomas, and Violet, started meeting daily at Thornton Enterprises. Violet had taken a leave of absence from the hospital. I need to understand what I'm inheriting, she'd explained, even if I end up only getting a third. Thomas dove in with surprising intensity. He'd spent years coasting, but now he was working 12-hour days, learning every aspect of the business. He sat with department heads, reviewed every contract, interviewed every employee about what was working and what wasn't. You're actually good at this, I told him, after watching him handle a tense meeting with a client who was threatening to leave. No, I'm not, Thomas said, but I'm learning. Finally, I split my time between my own agency and Thornton Enterprises. It was exhausting, but necessary. I needed to see if I could grow both businesses simultaneously. Needed to prove that my success wasn't dependent on Dad's shadow. By the end of week 2, we had a plan. It was aggressive, maybe too aggressive, but it was the only path to $12 million in 1 year. We acquire Merit Solutions, I proposed in a meeting with Patricia and the senior leadership team. Merit was a smaller marketing firm that complemented Thornton's services. They were struggling financially but had great clients and talented people. They're valued at $2.8 million, but I think we can get them for $2 million cash. We don't have $2 million liquid, Patricia pointed out. No, but we can leverage the company's assets for a loan. Use the existing business as collateral. That's risky, Patricia said. If the acquisition doesn't pay off, we're in debt and no better positioned. Everything about this is risky, Thomas said. But it's the only way. The leadership team voted. It passed barely. 3 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstention. I spent the next month negotiating the acquisition while Thomas worked on integration plans and Violet, well, Violet surprised all of us. She started attending client meetings. At first, I thought she was just observing, learning about the family business she'd inherited. But then she started contributing, asking questions that exposed problems we hadn't seen, suggesting solutions that actually worked. "I'm good at reading people," she explained after she helped us save a major contract by identifying that the client was really upset about a billing error, not the quality of work. "It's part of being a doctor. You listen to what people say and hear what they mean." By December, we'd closed the Merit Solutions acquisition. It was messy. The integration was harder than expected. We lost 3 employees who didn't want to work for a Thornton. We had to renegotiate contracts, fix broken processes, merge competing teams. But slowly, it started working. The combined company had more capabilities, better market position, and a stronger pipeline. In January, Thomas landed the biggest contract of his life, a 3-year deal with a healthcare company worth $1.8 million annually. He handled every aspect himself: the pitch, the negotiation, the close. When he walked into the office after signing the papers, the entire team stood and applauded. He called me that night, crying. "I did it. I actually did it." "You did," I said. "You really did." By March, we were ahead of schedule. The company was valued at $11.2 million. We needed another $800,000 to hit the target, but then everything fell apart. One of our largest clients, who represented 20% of our annual revenue, announced they were going with a competitor. The CEO called to apologize, but it was done. Signed contract. The revenue hit would drop our valuation below $10 million. All our progress gone. "We can get them back," Thomas insisted in an emergency meeting. "Let me talk to them." "They've already signed with someone else," Patricia said. "It's over." "Then we find new clients," Violet said. "We have 4 months. We can make up $800,000 in 4 months." "Not in this market," Patricia said. "New business takes time to develop, time we don't have." I sat there, my mind racing through possibilities. There had to be a way, had to be something we could do. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Raymond Thornton?" a voice said. "Yes. This is Gerald Chen from Chen Industries. I'm Violet's grandfather on her mother's side. I heard about Richard's challenge, about what you're trying to do. I'm impressed." I put the call on speaker. "Thank you, but we just lost a major client. We're probably not going to make the deadline." "I know. That client is now working with one of my companies. I may have encouraged them to make the switch." The room went silent. Violet's face went white. "You sabotaged us?" I said. "I tested you," Gerald corrected. "Richard spent 29 years paying my daughter to keep quiet about Violet. He treated her like a shameful secret. When she was dying, he set up a trust fund for Violet, but he made her promise never to contact his real family, never disrupt his life. My daughter agreed because she didn't want Violet to suffer, but I never made that promise." "What do you want?" I asked. "I want to offer you a deal. I'll become a client, a $2 million annual contract, 3 years guaranteed. It'll push your valuation well past $12 million. In exchange for what?" "In exchange for bringing Violet into the family publicly. No more secret daughter. No more hiding her like Richard did. You acknowledge her. Introduce her to everyone as your sister. Make her a full partner in everything that matters." I looked at Violet. She was crying silently. "And if we say no?" I asked. "Then you fail the challenge. Violet inherits everything anyway, but she'll always be the outsider, the secret shame, Richard's final insult to her mother's memory." Thomas spoke up. "We don't need your contract. We'll find another way." "No, you won't," Gerald said bluntly. "You have 4 months. The math doesn't work. This is the only option." "Let us discuss it," I said. "We'll call you back." I hung up. For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, Violet said, "I don't want this. Don't let him force you into something you're not ready for." "Are you kidding?" Thomas said. "You've been working alongside us for 5 months. You've earned a place here. The only reason we haven't already introduced you as our sister is because we've been too busy trying to hit an impossible deadline." "He's right," I said. "This isn't about the contract. This is about us acknowledging something that should have been acknowledged 29 years ago. Your family, that shouldn't be contingent on business deals." "But it is," Violet said quietly. "That's exactly what this is. A transaction. Just like everything else with your father." She wasn't wrong, but she wasn't entirely right either. "What if we called your grandfather back and told him to keep his contract?" I said. "But we still introduce you publicly as our sister. We still make you a full partner. We do it because it's right, not because of a business deal." "Then you fail the challenge," Violet pointed out. "Maybe that's okay," Thomas said. "Maybe some things matter more than proving something to a dead man." Patricia cleared her throat. "For what it's worth, there might be another option. I've been approached by Kendrick Global. They want to acquire Thornton Enterprises. Full buyout. They're offering $15.2 million. Every head in the room turned to her. "You're just mentioning this now?" I said. "It came in this morning. I was going to discuss it in our regular meeting tomorrow. But given the situation," she pulled up the email on her laptop. "They want to move fast. They'd close within 60 days. If we sell to them, we win the challenge," Thomas said slowly. "The company would be valued at over $15 million, way past the $12 million target. But then none of us would have the company," I pointed out. "The whole point was to earn it back from Violet." "Actually," Patricia said, "the challenge didn't specify that you had to retain ownership. It just said you had to increase the value to $12 million within 1 year. If we sell at $15.2 million, you've technically succeeded. The proceeds would be split according to the terms, 1/3 to each of you. So we'd each get about $5 million, not the $8.7 million we'd hoped for by keeping the company, but still substantial. There's a catch," Patricia continued. "Kendrick wants to retain all current leadership. They'd offer positions to each of you as consultants during the transition, but after 1 year, you'd be out. So Dad's company disappears," Thomas said, "becomes part of someone else's portfolio." "Does that matter?" Violet asked. It was a good question. Did it matter? We'd been working for 5 months to save a company that Dad had used as a weapon against us our entire lives. A company he'd cared more about than his own children. Why should we care about preserving it? I need some air, I said. I walked out to the parking lot, Violet following me. We stood by my car, the March wind cutting through our jackets. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know. What do you want? I asked first. I laughed despite myself. Honestly, part of me wants to sell, take the money, walk away from all of this. But another part of me thinks about the last 5 months, about watching Thomas become a real businessman, about seeing you discover you're good at this, about finally working together as siblings instead of as competitors. We barely know each other, Violet said. True, but I know you better after 5 months than I knew my father after 32 years. She considered this. Gerald will be furious if we sell instead of accepting his deal. Is that a bad thing? He's my grandfather. He's trying to protect me. By sabotaging our client relationships? By forcing us into a transaction? He's using Richard's playbook, Violet admitted. Money and leverage. It's all he knows. Then let's show him there's another way. We went back inside. The team was still in the conference room, arguing about the Kendrick offer. We're going to decline both offers, I announced. Everyone stared at me. The Kendrick buyout and Gerald's contract. We're saying no to both. Then how do we hit $12 million on? Patricia asked. We don't, I said. We missed the deadline. Violet keeps the company as originally planned in Dad's will, but she keeps us on as full partners. Equal stakes, equal say. We build this business together, the right way. I can't just give you ownership, Violet said. That would be gift taxes alone. Then we buy in, Thomas interrupted. We each buy a third. Fair market value. We take out loans if we have to. At $8.7 million divided by 3, that's roughly $2.9 million each, Patricia calculated. Neither of you has that kind of capital. My agency is worth about $3.2 million, I said. I could leverage that for a loan, or sell it entirely. You'd give up your business? Violet asked. It's time. I built it to prove I didn't need my father. I've proven that. Now maybe I can build something with my family instead. Thomas nodded. I've got about $400,000 in savings. I can borrow the rest against my future stake in the company, if Violet will sign off on that. This is insane, Patricia said. You're turning down a guaranteed $5 million each to gamble on buying into a company that's valued at less. Yes, the three of us said simultaneously. Patricia stared at us for a long moment. Then she laughed. You three are definitely related, all equally stubborn. Over the next week, we restructured everything. I sold my agency to a competitor for $3.1 million. It hurt more than I expected. That business had been my proof that I could succeed without Dad, but it was also my past. Time to move forward. Thomas secured financing through 3 different banks. He'd leveraged every relationship he'd built over the past 5 months. Violet signed the paperwork making us equal partners in Thornton Enterprises. We legally changed the name to Thornton Chen Enterprises. Violet's mother's name would be part of the company now. Public. Acknowledged. When the 1-year deadline passed, I called Howard. We didn't hit the target, I told him. Company's valued at $11.2 million. We failed the challenge. I see, Howard said. So the company goes entirely to Violet per the original will? Actually, no. Violet sold us each a third for fair market value. We're now equal partners. There was a long pause. That's not what Richard intended. I know, but it's what we intend. He wanted you to fight for it, to prove yourselves. We did. Just not the way he planned. Another pause. Richard would have hated this, you know. The 3 of you working together, sharing everything equally. It goes against everything he believed. Good. Howard actually chuckled. In that case, there's one more thing. Richard left a sealed envelope with me. Instructions to open it only if you miss the deadline. Do you want to know what it says? Not particularly, but you're going to tell me anyway. It's addressed to all 3 of you. Would you like me to read it over the phone or send it? Send it. We'll read it together. That evening, the 3 of us sat in the conference room where we'd spent so many hours over the past year. The envelope sat unopened on the table. Should we even read it? Thomas asked. We know it's going to be something designed to hurt us. Or maybe it's an apology, Violet offered. One last chance for him to say he was wrong. Dad never apologized for anything, I said. But Violet's right. We should read it. Good or bad, we should know. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single page. Dad's handwriting, dated 2 days before his stroke. I read it aloud. To my children, if you're reading this, you failed. You couldn't grow my company by 30% in 1 year. You couldn't prove you were worth the inheritance I denied you. You couldn't even work together effectively, despite having a common goal and a shared enemy. Me. I'm not surprised. Thomas lacks discipline. Raymond lacks humility. And Violet, despite all her virtues, lacks the ruthlessness necessary for real business success. But here's what you need to understand. I designed this challenge to be almost impossible. The timeline was too short. The target was too high. I knew from the start that you'd probably fail. So why did I do it? Because I wanted you to stop fighting each other and start fighting together. I wanted Thomas to finally learn what it means to work for something. I wanted Raymond to stop needing to prove himself and start needing his family. And I wanted Violet to stop being a secret and start being a daughter. I was a terrible father, a worse husband. I destroyed my first family trying to keep my second family hidden, and destroyed my second family by never fully claiming them. I used money as a weapon because I didn't know how to use words as love. This challenge was my last attempt to fix what I broke. If you failed it, but found each other in the process, then you didn't actually fail. You won something more valuable than any company I built. If you're reading this alone, divided and bitter, then I truly did fail you one last time. But if you're reading this together, then maybe I finally got something right. I'm sorry for everything I did and everything I didn't do. You all deserved better than me. Love, Dad. The silence that followed was deafening. That manipulative son of a bitch, Thomas finally said, but he was crying. We all were. He still couldn't just say it, I said. Even in his final letter, he had to make it part of some game, some lesson. But he wasn't entirely wrong, Violet said softly. We are better together than we were apart. Doesn't excuse 30 years of abuse, Thomas said. No, Violet agreed. But maybe it explains it. Just a little. I folded the letter carefully. What do we do with this? Keep it, Thomas said. Not to remember him fondly, but to remember where we came from, what we overcame. And to remember not to repeat his mistakes, Violet added. If any of us ever have kids, we do better. We're honest. We're present. We use words instead of weapons. Deal, I said. We sat there for a while longer, none of us quite ready to leave. Outside, the city lights were coming on. Thornton Chen Enterprises occupied the top 3 floors of this building now. We'd expanded in the 6 months since restructuring, hired 12 new people, landed contracts in new markets. The company was worth about $9.8 million at last valuation. We'd actually lost value since the challenge ended, but we'd gained something more important. I have news, Violet said suddenly. I wasn't sure when to mention it, but this seems like the right time. What kind of news? Thomas asked. I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air. Congratulations, I said carefully, not sure if this was happy news or complicated news. It is happy, Violet confirmed, smiling through tears. It's terrifying and unplanned and probably terrible timing, but it's happy. The father is, well, it's complicated, but I'm keeping the baby. You're going to be a mom, Thomas said wonderingly. The baby will be our niece or nephew, I finished. Violet nodded. Richard's grandchild, though they'll never meet him. Maybe that's for the best, Thomas said, then softer. We'll be better grandparents than he was a father. We'll make sure the kid knows they're wanted, loved, that they don't have to earn their place in the family. We'll make sure they know they're ours, I agreed. No secrets, no shame, just family. And that's exactly what we did. 9 months later, Violet gave birth to a daughter. She named her Claire Rose, Claire after our mother, Rose after Violet's mother. 2 women who'd suffered under Dad's deceptions, honored in one tiny person. Mom cried when she heard the name. She'd been slowly rebuilding her life after the devastation of Dad's death and revelations. She'd sold the house, couldn't afford to buy out Dad's half, just like he'd known. But instead of being broken by it, she'd found a small condo downtown and started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other women escape from controlling men. I wasted 35 years on someone who never loved me, she told me once. I'm not wasting whatever time I have left. Thomas had transformed completely. He'd moved into a modest apartment, sold the house Dad had bought him, and started living within his means. He was dating someone he'd met at a business networking event, a woman who knew nothing about the Thornton family drama and liked him for who he was, not what he represented. I'm 38 years old and I finally feel like an adult, he'd said. It's about damn time. As for me, I'd found something unexpected. Peace. I'd spent my entire adult life proving I didn't need Dad's help. Now I didn't need to prove anything. The business was growing steadily. My siblings were my partners and friends. I had a niece who would grow up knowing she was loved unconditionally. We held a small ceremony at Thornton Chen Enterprises when Claire Rose was 3 months old. A naming celebration and family acknowledgement. We invited Mom, Gerald, who'd grudgingly accepted our decision and eventually became a valued business advisor, and close friends. During the ceremony, I made a toast. My father spent his life building walls between his 2 families, between success and failure, between love and duty. He believed in scarcity, that there wasn't enough success, money, or love to go around, that for someone to win, someone else had to lose. But Claire Rose here proves he was wrong. She exists because of love that crossed barriers. She's being raised by 3 parents who share responsibilities instead of competing. She'll inherit a business built on partnership, not ownership. And she'll grow up knowing that family isn't about who deserves what. It's about showing up, working together, choosing each other every day. Dad tried to teach us his lessons through deprivation and competition. Instead, we learned different lessons, that collaboration beats rivalry, that transparency beats secrets, and that chosen family is just as real as blood family. To Claire Rose. May she grow up in a world where love isn't conditional and success isn't measured in dollars, and may she never know what it's like to have to earn a place at the table. Everyone raised their glasses. Even Gerald, who still didn't quite understand why we'd turned down his contract, but respected that we'd chosen family over business. Later that evening, after everyone had left, the 3 of us sat in my living room, the house I'd bought next to my parents' place. Mom had sold her house to a young couple with 2 kids. It had been hard for her, leaving the place she'd lived for 35 years, but she'd stood on my porch watching the moving truck pull away and said, "Good riddance to bad memories." Now my house was the gathering place. The neutral ground where we made decisions and shared meals, and watched Claire Rose learn to hold her head up. Do you think he'd be proud? Thomas asked, holding his niece carefully. If he could see us now? Honestly, I don't care, I said. We're not doing this for him. We're doing it for us, for her. But do you think he would be? Thomas pressed. I thought about it, really thought about it, about the man who'd pushed me away while secretly supporting me, who'd hated Thomas for being obedient and hated me for being independent, who'd loved Violet but hidden her like a shameful secret. I think he'd be confused, I finally said. Nothing about what we're doing fits his worldview. We're sharing instead of competing. We're transparent instead of secretive. We're choosing relationships over assets. He'd probably think we were being foolish, weak. And you don't care? Violet asked. Not even a little bit. She smiled. Good, because I talked to Howard last week. There's one more thing Dad left behind, something he didn't include in the will. What now? I groaned. A letter, sealed, addressed to Claire Rose, instructions to give it to her on her 18th birthday. You've got to be kidding me, Thomas said. He's trying to manipulate us from beyond the grave for another 18 years? That was my first thought, Violet admitted. But then I realized something. We don't have to give it to her. We could destroy it right now, choose to end his influence completely. But, I prompted, because there was clearly a but. But maybe it's not our choice to make. Maybe Claire Rose deserves to know who her grandfather was, the good and the bad, the complexity, and then she can decide for herself what it means. That's very mature of you, Thomas said. I hate it, but he was smiling. So we keep the letter? I asked. We keep the letter, Violet confirmed, locked away. And when she's 18, we tell her everything first. About Dad, about us, about how we all found each other. And then we give her the letter and let her decide if she wants to read it. And if she chooses not to, Thomas asked, then we burn it together and never speak of it again. It seemed like a good plan, a way to honor both the past and the future without letting either one control us. 3 years later, Thornton Chen Enterprises was valued at $16.3 million. We'd surpassed Dad's challenge target without even trying. The company was thriving not because we were desperately chasing growth, but because we'd built something stable, sustainable, based on trust instead of fear. Thomas had become CEO. He'd fought against it at first, insisting he wasn't qualified. But Violet and I had both insisted. We'd watched him grow into the role naturally over the past few years. He had a gift for leadership we'd never seen when he was just going through the motions at Dad's company. Violet had stayed active in the business while also returning to medicine part-time. She'd used her share of the company's success to fund free clinics in underserved communities, just like Dad had predicted in his final letter to her. But she was doing it on her terms, not his. And me? I discovered I was actually a decent COO. I handled operations, strategy, and growth. I finally found a balance between the independence I'd craved and the connection I'd needed. We had family dinners every Sunday. Mom would come, sometimes Gerald. Always Claire Rose, who was now a precocious 3-year-old who called all three of us uncle and auntie and mommy interchangeably because we all parented her together. One Sunday, she asked about the empty seat at our dinner table. Who sits there? She asked, pointing. We all looked at each other. That's for your grandfather, Violet said carefully. He died before you were born. Was he nice? How do you explain someone like Dad to a child? He was complicated, I said. He made mistakes, big ones. But he also built something that brought your mommy, Uncle Thomas, and Uncle Raymond together. So in a way, you exist because of him. Does he miss me? Claire Rose asked. My throat tightened. I think he would have loved you very much, in his own way. She thought about this seriously. Then, can we still save him a seat, even if he's gone? Yeah, Thomas said, his voice thick. We can do that. So we did. Every Sunday, there was an empty chair, not as a shrine to Dad, but as a reminder of where we came from, of what we'd overcome, of the family we'd chosen to build instead of the one that had been forced on us. Years passed. The business continued to grow. Claire Rose started school. Mom published a book about surviving narcissistic relationships. Thomas got married to his girlfriend, who'd stuck with him through all the family drama and loved him for the man he'd become, not the man he'd pretended to be. I started dating someone I'd met through work, someone who knew my whole messy story and didn't run away, someone who understood that family could be complicated and that success wasn't always measured in dollars. Violet had another child, a son this time. She named him Thomas Raymond, after her brothers. Are you kidding? Thomas said when she told us. You're naming him after us? Dad got to name his kids, Violet said simply. I'm naming mine after the family I actually want him to emulate. When Thomas Raymond, we called him TR to avoid confusion, was born, we held another ceremony at Thornton Chen Enterprises. This time, the company had grown to occupy an entire building. We'd expanded into new markets, acquired 2 smaller companies, built something that was genuinely valuable, not because we were chasing Dad's challenge, but because we'd created something worth building. At the ceremony, Gerald gave a speech. I've watched these 3 over the past 7 years, he said. I've seen them build a business, raise a family, create something out of pain and loss and betrayal, and I've learned something important. Richard was wrong about almost everything. He thought scarcity drove excellence, that deprivation built character, that love had to be earned. But these 3 proved that abundance creates better results, that support builds stronger people, that love should be freely given. They took everything Richard tried to destroy and built something beautiful from it. TR and Claire Rose will never know their grandfather, but they'll know something better. What it means to be part of a family that chooses love over legacy, connection over competition, and each other over everything else. Afterward, Mom pulled me aside. I need to tell you something, she said. I've been holding on to it for months, waiting for the right time. What is it? I'm sick. Early stage, but it's there. The doctors say with treatment, I've got a good shot. But it made me think about time, about what I want to say before I run out of chances. My stomach dropped. Mom, let me finish, she said gently. Your father stole 35 years from me. He took my youth, my confidence, my sense of self, but he gave me you and Thomas. And through you, I got Violet and Claire Rose and TR. He meant to destroy me, but instead he gave me the tools to rebuild myself into something stronger. I don't forgive him. I never will. But I'm grateful for what came after him, for watching my sons become good men, for gaining a daughter I never knew I needed, for grandchildren who will grow up without his poison. We're going to fight this, I said. Whatever you need, I know you will. That's what family does. Real family, not the performance your father demanded. Actual showing up, doing the work, being present family. She was right, of course. When she started treatment, we were all there, taking shifts, holding her hair, bringing smoothies, just like I'd done for Emma in that story from long ago, just like family should. The treatment worked. Mom went into remission. We celebrated at yet another Sunday dinner. Claire Rose making a card that said, Grandma is strong, with crayon drawings of all of us holding hands. Time kept moving forward. Claire Rose turned 10. Started asking questions about her grandfather. Real questions, not kid questions. Why did he have 2 families? She asked one day. We were all there. Me, Thomas, Violet, Mom, and Gerald. We'd agreed years ago that we'd never lie to her about Dad, that she deserved the truth, age-appropriate but honest. Violet took this one, because he was afraid. He made a mistake by having an affair, and then instead of being honest about it, he tried to hide it. And the hiding created more problems, more pain. Was he mean? Sometimes, Thomas said. He used money to control people. He said hurtful things. He made us feel like we had to earn his love. But he also built a successful business, I added. He supported your mom her whole life, even if he didn't do it the way he should have. He was complicated. People usually are. Do you miss him? Claire Rose asked. The three of us looked at each other. Sometimes, I admitted. Not the dad we had, but the dad we wish we'd had. Does that make sense? She nodded seriously. Then, Mom says I have a letter from him, that I'll get it when I'm 18. That's right, Violet confirmed. Do you think I should read it? That's up to you, Thomas said. We'll support whatever you decide. What if it's mean? What if he says bad things? Then we'll be there with you, I said. And we'll remind you that his words don't define you, that you're loved unconditionally, that you'll never have to earn your place in this family. She thought about this. Then, okay, I think I'll read it, when I'm ready. 8 years later, Claire Rose turned 18. She'd grown into an incredible young woman, confident, compassionate, driven. She was heading to college in the fall to study social work. She wanted to help families like ours, she said, families broken by secrets and lies. On her birthday, we gathered at Thornton Chen Enterprises. The company was now worth $43, $7 million. We'd expanded internationally, employed over 200 people, built something that mattered, but none of that mattered as much as what happened next. Violet handed Claire Rose the sealed envelope. It had sat in a safe deposit box for 18 years, untouched. You don't have to read it now, Violet said. You don't have to read it ever. This is entirely your choice. Claire Rose held the envelope for a long moment. Then she opened it. Inside was a letter, brief, to the point, very dad. She read it silently first, then aloud. Dear Claire Rose, if you're reading this, you're 18 years old, an adult, and you've grown up in a family that I helped create but never got to meet. I don't know what kind of person you've become. I don't know if you're like your mother, brilliant and compassionate, or like your Uncle Raymond, driven and proud, or like your Uncle Thomas, whatever Thomas becomes, since he's still finding himself as I write this. But I hope you're none of those things. I hope you're entirely yourself. I spent my life trying to control who people became, trying to shape them into what I thought they should be. It was my greatest failure. I created children who resented me, a wife who feared me, and a daughter I couldn't claim. I built an empire of money and loneliness. Don't do what I did. Don't try to control your destiny so much that you destroy your humanity. Don't love conditionally. Don't measure worth in dollars or success in victories over others. And don't forgive me. I don't deserve it. But do better than me. Be better than me. Love openly. Fail gracefully. Choose people over pride. If the three of them, your mother and uncles, managed to build something together after everything I did to keep them apart, then maybe there's hope for all of us. Maybe families can be built from broken pieces. Maybe love can grow in soil poisoned by betrayal. You're proof of that. You exist because broken people refuse to stay broken. Because siblings chose each other over bitterness. Because love, real love, doesn't follow the rules I tried to impose. I'm sorry I never got to meet you, but I'm glad you'll never have to meet me. You'll only know me through stories, through warning tales, through the example of what not to become. That's probably for the best. Be good, Claire Rose. Be better than all of us. With complicated love, your grandfather. The room was silent when she finished. Claire Rose folded the letter carefully and looked up at all of us. Her family, broken and rebuilt and stronger for it. He was right about one thing, she said. You all did build something better from broken pieces. You took his worst qualities and created their opposite. His control became your collaboration. His secrets became your transparency. His conditional love became your unconditional acceptance. She paused. I'm glad I read this. Not because it gives me closure or makes me forgive him, but because it helps me understand where you all came from, what you overcame, what you chose to build instead. What do you want to do with it now? Violet asked. Claire Rose walked to the empty chair we'd saved for Dad at every family gathering for 18 years. She placed the letter on it. I think we should keep it there, she said, as a reminder, not of him, but of us, of what we chose to become despite him. And that's what we did. The letter stayed on the empty chair, a physical reminder that the past existed but didn't control us, that we'd built something new, something better. Thornton Chen Enterprises continued to grow. Claire Rose joined the company after college, bringing fresh ideas and new energy. TR was showing signs of following in his mother's footsteps, brilliant, compassionate, driven to help people. Thomas and I both eventually stepped back from day-to-day operations, letting the next generation take over. We'd done what we'd set out to do, prove we were more than our father's failures, build something that mattered, create a family based on choice rather than obligation. On what would have been Dad's 80th birthday, we gathered for our Sunday dinner. All of us. 3 generations of a family that shouldn't exist, but does. A family built on broken promises and rebuilt with chosen love. We raised our glasses to the empty chair, not to honor the man who'd sat in it, but to celebrate the space he'd left behind, the space we'd filled with something better, something real. To family, I said. To family, they all echoed. And in that moment, surrounded by people who chose to love each other, I finally understood what success really meant. It wasn't the house I'd bought next to my parents, wasn't the agency I'd built or sold, wasn't even the company we'd grown together. It was this, these people, these Sunday dinners, these chosen relationships, this complicated, messy, beautiful family we'd created from the wreckage of the one we'd been born into. Dad had said I'd built my success on his foundation, that I'd never be sure which parts were really mine. He'd meant it as a curse, a final knife in the back, but he was wrong, because the only foundation that mattered was the one we'd built together, the one made of honesty and vulnerability and showing up even when it was hard, the one that said worth wasn't measured in dollars but in presence, in choosing each other, in doing better than the generation before. That foundation was entirely ours, and it would hold for generations to come. As I looked around the table at my brother who'd found his strength, at my sister who'd found her family, at Mom who'd found her voice, at the children who'd grown up knowing they were loved without condition, I realized something. Dad had been right about one thing, though not the way he'd meant it. I hadn't made it without his money. I'd made it without him, and that made all the difference.